Let's talk about your dad, man.
Well, my father grew up poor, Bushwick, Brooklyn. One of 8 brothers and sisters. Went to Jamaica High School. Then he went to Long Island University, downtown Brooklyn. And then he wanted to do something with his life. You know, do something big. So he said, hey, let me try to become a doctor.
Wow.
He applied, got accepted to Marquette Medical School. And when he was there, he wanted to become a thoracic surgeon.
A thoracic surgeon?
A heart and lung surgeon.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm not going to disrespect the dentist. I'm not going to disrespect any other type of, but when you become a heart and lung surgeon, you're talking wow.
Yeah, that's serious.
And he put everything into it, and he became a heart and lung surgeon. And
So,
here he was
salute to your dad.
in the 1950s, in the 1960s, wanting to help people. And he's at Physicians Hospital. He's at St. Vincent's Hospital. He's at Columbus Hospital, which became Mother Cabrini Healthcare Center, which recently was just closed right next to behind the precinct, the police academy on 19th Street. And my father, he didn't care. In the 50s, a white person wouldn't go to Harlem, but my father did. And he
Nice.
became the person that put in the trauma unit at Harlem Hospital.
Wow.
And, you know, if you were
Atlantic Side.
in the 50s, 60s, if you went to Harlem and you weren't a doctor, you were probably going up there to get drugs. But my father did so much. Just talking about him now, you know, I mean, he was great. I mean, he was
Nah,
great.
that's good. That's
you
awesome,
know,
man.
and I remember it was September 20th, 1968. My father is on his way to the Waldorf Astoria for a wedding with my mom. I was about 1 year and 6 months old. When he gets there, no cell phones, no beepers. He finds out a patient stabbed. So he leaves my mom there, not knowing if he'd be back in time for the wedding. If you ever drove with my father, you know. So he made it from the Waldorf, I think it was somewhere in the 60s to 125th Street, probably in no time. Threw his car in the lot, goes in there, changes out of his tux into his scrubs, walks in there, he sees Dr. Cordice and Dr. Maynard, 2 black doctors, hemming and hawing. He sees the patient on the table, quickly assesses the situation, sees the knife touching his aorta.
That's a
And-
serious procedure.
You know, for people who get stabbed, if you get stabbed in the chest, that's serious. If it's not through the heart, a good doctor you have a chance with. If it gets through the heart, God can't help you. This was touching the heart, touching the aorta. Almost like a balloon and a needle. And if the patient coughs or sneeze,
Right, it could be it.
that sensation causes the knife, that's it. My father realized it was too dangerous to even touch his chest. But how do you tell someone not to cough or sneeze? Time was of the essence. And if you go to the website, WHSAK.com, WHSAK.com, whenharlemsavedtheking.com, there's a police officer that says you needed sort of a renegade, someone to take the bull by the horns. My father quickly just grabs some instruments, manages to remove 2 ribs, manages, with the ribs being removed, gets the knife and manages to go in and get the knife out without the patient coughing and sneezing.
Wow.
He saves the person's life. He goes home, gets up about 5 o'clock in the morning to quickly hustle back to Harlem Hospital to make sure that the patient's life he saved, no infection starts. Because if infection starts, that's not good because it's right near the heart. Paparazzi sneak in, take a picture And that's the picture you see of my father leaning over Dr. Martin Luther King, saving his life. One thing that I learned from that picture is why my father wore a bow tie. He never wore the regular ties because he told me, he goes, Ron, when I have to lean over to help my patients, a bow tie never gets involved with interfering in the process.
Like a regular tie would hang.
Yeah.
Wow, that's dope.
So I never knew that. It was going to take Dr. King approximately 3 months to be 100% healthy. Coretta Scott King comes rushing to New York. She didn't want Martin coming to New York. She didn't trust anybody in New York. Black, white, Chinese.
Right,
She didn't
with
trust
all that was
anybody.
going on, yeah.
Obvious reasons. Dr. King, he was shaken. And everybody who wanted to come by his side, he humna. And through the days that he was in the hospital, Martin Luther King and my dad hit it off. There was a trust, a bond that started. Two people from two different worlds, a white guy from Bushwick, Brooklyn, and Martin Luther King from the South. Martin Luther King was a genius, graduating college at like 15 years old. I mean, I'd like to say my father was a genius, would be on the Mount Rushmore of doctors, especially at that time, and they hit it off. When they were released from the hospital, Coretta went over to my dad and asked for his number, which she already asked for his office number. She said they would call him Doc. Doc, can I have your home number? And my father said, certainly. About 3 months later, 3.5 months later, January 9th, my father, in his office, checks the mail. He gets a beautiful letter from Martin Luther King. And I'd like to read it.
Sure, please do.
It's on stationery letterhead. Martin Luther King Jr., Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, 454 Dexter Avenue, Montgomery, Alabama. The letter is dated January 6, 1959. Dear Dr. Naclerio, ever since leaving New York, I have been intending to write you at least a note to express my great appreciation to you for all that you did to preserve my life. Your skilled surgery, coupled with your genuine concern for me as a patient, combined to bring me from a very low ebb in my life to blooming health again. Please know that I will remember your gestures of goodwill so long as the cords of memory shall lengthen. I hope you have received our gift by now. It is simply a little way to express our gratitude to you for all that you did to ease the load of a difficult period in our lives. With best wishes to you and yours for health and happiness in 1959, I am sincerely yours, Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow. Wow, that's dope.
You know,
I get that up.
you know,
I salute to your
and
dad.
then all of a sudden, Martin Luther King's wife, Coretta, calls my dad. They talk, saying how indebted Martin was to you, and they found out how dangerous it was. You know, this was not a typical root canal. This was
Nah, he had to take the ribs out to get to it.
8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people would not have survived.
Wow.
And Coretta tells my dad, Martin really took a liking to you. He trusted you. Evidently, you guys had a lot of talks. They talked about everything. I need a favor. So my father goes, what's the favor? Martin has to come back to New York for the movement. I don't want him, but I know he has to go. Would you meet him and accompany him on one or two things? So my father got the details. He goes, I'll change a couple of things. And that's how the relationship really got tight. Martin would go places with my dad. My father also was wise enough, because he was part of the police academy, police surgeon, that he made sure that there was a little, surveillance in
Right,
case
right, right,
some
right.
crazy person, because it was a lot different then.
Indeed.
And from there, the next time, Coretta accompanied him. And Coretta goes, Doc, how about you call your wife and we go out? They went to an Italian restaurant. I don't know where. There was another time they went to Chandler's Steakhouse on 37th Street off of Madison Avenue. Now, my father, because he devised how to put the pacemakers in, he goes down and he gives lectures to the young doctors that want to learn the procedure and learn from him. So he goes to Atlanta. So what does my father do? He calls Martin. Martin brings him to meet his dad,
Wow.
Daddy King. And from that, my dad and Daddy King hit it off really well. And they remained friends after Martin was assassinated April 4th, 1968. And I remember there was a book that he autographed, Daddy King. I have it in my father's study, October 21st, 1980. Dear Dr. Naclerio, may God bless you, Martin Luther King Sr. I remember April 4th, 1968. I was 11 years old. I came home, did what I had to do. I think I had a baseball practice. My brother was there. We were ready to eat. My mom was waiting for my dad. My dad didn't come home. I'm used to that. Somebody gets stabbed, somebody needs an operation, you don't say, see me tomorrow, especially if the guy's bleeding to death.
Right.
But he called 3 or 4 times. I'll be home. Are you have an emergency? No. When he did get home, it was late, and my mom puts the food on the table. My father always comes home with a sense of humor. He was very out of it that night, and my mom gives him some soup. He took a spoon, sipped it, said, I'm not hungry. So my mom goes, no, you got to eat. And he goes, I'm not hungry. Did you eat anything? Not really. But my brother and I, we ate. And we loved it that now we were getting a chance to eat when my father wasn't eating. But he went upstairs to his study, and we hear him making phone calls. So now I'm getting a little worried. Something going on. Like I didn't know. You're 11 years old.
Right.
You pick up on stuff. My brother's going, something's wrong with Dad. Something's wrong with Dad. So then he opens up the room and he goes downstairs. We had one television at the time, and turns on the TV, and then we realized,
Dr. King had been killed.
yep.
Wow.
And April 8th, 1968, I remember after school, my mother picking me up, and my father was home with a suitcase. Still hit me. And my mother drives my father to the airport, because the next day he was at Martin Luther King's funeral.
Yes. Well,
See, and every Martin Luther King's Day, I've been blessed. This past year I was on Channel 5, Roseanne Scotto. I was on 77, Net Game. It's a special day for me because, I found my brother dead July 20th, 2002. My mom died April 2nd, 2018. But every Martin Luther King Day, when I get a chance to talk and relive that day with my father, I feel like my father's alive for those minutes. And now he's still dead, up in heaven. I'm sure him and Dr. King are telling me, wipe your tears, they're doing well. But I have to wait until next Martin Luther King's Day, But, September 20th is a weird day for me every year because that's the anniversary. I think it's up to, this year it'll be 63 years.
Wow.
The Apollo had a special thing after 60 years. It was great to be there and see the documentary on it. I met so many people. And, with the way the world is today, I might not be long for this world because I never looked at things as black and white or white and black. I looked at it as good as bad. I mean, I didn't realize that I have 4 assistant coaches that I love. I didn't realize none of them are white. Mm-hmm. I've coached hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids on my Cardozo team over the years. I didn't realize most of them were black. I don't look at it. I know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I know what an addict is, a drug addict, right. An alcoholic is. I'm not a drug addict, and I'm not an alcoholic, so I can understand what the word means, but I don't know the physical effects of, let's say, if I needed a heroin fix, or I needed a cocaine fix, or I needed a drink, or if I was a gambler. So I know what the word racist means. I know what racism is, but I don't have it in me. If I do, I don't know, and it's crazy because it has gotten so bad that I don't know, it's never going to end. You're never going to get rid of racism 100%, but the game of basketball,
there's no place for it.
I've never seen racism in,
right.
Pat, have you ever seen racism in basketball?
No.
I mean, I don't know. I know it exists. I know when, I left out something with my dad. It was very easy then to get a person's phone number. You call up, the operator, Dr. Emil Naclerio, Queens. Oh, yeah, I got a number. Then the number was 718-224-6127. It's not the number anymore. And people would call. My mother would pick up. My brother picked up. Even it happened to me, but most of the time my mother would pick up. And is Dr. Naclerio there? No, he's not. When will he be in? Oh, he's at work. He'll be home at 7 or whatever. Can I leave? Can you want to leave a message? Yeah. Next time your husband saves that and uses the N-word, we know where he lives. Wow. And when I didn't know a lot of times my mother was shaking. And I got worried, like, what? Nah. My mother wouldn't tell me. My mother wouldn't tell me until I was after 21. But it happened to me a couple of times, junior high school, high school. But when it happened to me,
you fired back?
I would give the FU. My father saved a person's life. My father saved the greatest person's life. I don't want to hear that. And right. The way I would come up, that's when they realized that I wasn't going to cross that line, and if you don't like it, I'll fungal. Right. But
for sure.
2 cute stories. 3 years ago, I'm at Lincoln Park, and there's a coach that coached Walton High School that now is coaching Monroe Junior College. So in between games, he's there to try to grab a couple of these 19-year-old kids to go to his junior college. Right. He says, Coach, you know what my father has in common with Martin Luther King? I go, what? You know what my father has in common with Martin Luther King? So I said, you know what my father has in common with Martin Luther King? So he goes, that's why I'm bringing it up. I go, what? He goes, your father saved my father's life as well as Martin Luther King did. So I said, well, what did my father do? He goes, well, my father was driving over the bridge, got hit by a truck. He was in a Volkswagen. Your father stopped. He had a collapsed lung, and your father saved my father's
Oh,
life.
that's crazy.
I'm 5 or 6 years old. I'm watching cartoons. I love cartoons, 5 or 6 years old. The phone rings. My father's getting out of the shower. My brother is hemming the pants of my brother. Phone rings. Ronnie, get the phone. Ronnie, get the phone. I want to watch the cartoons.
Right,
Ronnie,
right.
get the phone. So I run to get to the phone. Who's on the phone? Who's on the phone? So I answer the phone like they taught me. Dr. Naclerio and Mrs. Naclerio's residence. Who's on the phone? Who's on the phone? So I ask who's speaking. They go, Ronnie, who's on the phone? I go, I'm not sure. Some guy says he's a king. It was Dr. Martin Luther King. My father comes running out, grabs the phone, and a couple of years later when I met Dr. King, and he asked, he called me a whippersnapper. Were you the young whippersnapper that answered the phone thinking I was a king? So, and Dr. King said, well, one, I'm not a king. And then he goes, I'm not a queen.
Right, definitely.
You know, but, hey, what can you do? Now, there was a relationship that
Ensued.
we formed.
Right.
Dr. Alphonse Cohen is doing a documentary on when Harlem saved the king and my dad. And he said, Ron, I'm going to surprise you. And I told my principal, there's a chance. Why isn't that? So when I found out that the chance was going to happen, I told my principal on a Tuesday, I'm going to check tomorrow to make sure. He goes, what? He goes, I have a certain person coming that wants to meet me for the first time and the kids on my team. Who? Martin Luther King's oldest son.
Third.
He goes, what? He goes, Ron,
That's
is
huge.
he really coming? So I said, yeah, what time? He goes, no, Ron, we're going to build this up big. The media found out about it. He did it for the whole school, the whole auditorium. When he came, it was amazing. It brought back so many memories. When we were on stage, you can see he talked, gave a great speech. Most of the kids were like, why is Coach on stage? Why is Coach on stage? And then all of a sudden, when Martin III started talking about his father getting stabbed,
Speaking about your dad.
speaking about who the father was, who the doctor was, and when they realized it, all of the kids were, and then he thanked me. He goes, on behalf of the King family, I want to thank Coach Naclerio, and he came over and hugged me, and there wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium, and it was awesome. I mean, it made me feel not like $1 million, like $1 billion.
That's serious, though.
And afterwards, there was a little function, a get together. You know, we met with the media, New York One, this paper, that paper. Martin and I, we discussed so much. I actually brought so much stuff that his father mailed my dad. I showed him the letter. I showed him, he asked for a copy of the letter. I showed him the wallet and the keychain, and, you know, we exchanged cell phone numbers. We've stayed in contact. I've met him once since then. And July of 2017, I started a Cardozo basketball reunion.
Okay.
That become a happening, not just a reunion for Cardozo basketball players, cheerleaders. Then it became all Cardozo alumni. Then it became a Cardozo basketball reunion for everybody. You know, even if you weren't a Cardozo, you were an opponent. You know, you were one of the guys I was tight with, like a Patrick Alphonse from playing with Hirsch's All Stars. And so I called down to the King Pavilion because I couldn't get a hold of Martin for whatever reason, or he didn't get back to me, and they said he's out of the country. And I explained I was coming down July 28th, and I'll be there. That was the Thursday. I'll be there until Sunday or Monday. A day or two later, I get a phone call from Kennedy Mack, the King family's personal liaison for whatever, and they go, Martin is not in town. He's out of the country, but his daughter, Bernice, would really love to meet you.
Nice.
Can you come by the King Pavilion Friday, January 29th? Certainly. What time? I'll get back to you. So they call, how about 11 o'clock? So I was staying with a former player of mine, Patrick Crosby, who played baseball and basketball for me, who was also, got drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves and then became a cop and finished being a cop on the mayor's detail.
Okay.
He's now in Atlanta, and he drops me off. I make sure I get there early because we had to prepare for the parties. So I'm walking around the King Pavilion, and I'm bringing a lot of copies of the letter. So when I get to the part where you see the suit and the shoes that Dr. King was wearing when he got stabbed, and I'm there, and people are like in awe of it, and I start talking about it, and they go, "How do you know so much about it?" I said, "Wow!" And I gave it. You gotta keep who are you? And I explained who I was, the son. And next thing you know, they want to take pictures. So now I get a text, Coach, where are you? Come to the executive offices. So I get to the executive's offices. It was about 5 to 11, and I'm excited. And when Bernice came down, she knew who I was when I was down from the pictures.
Absolutely.
We hugged. I had a packet of articles about me, my father with her dad, everything, the letter her mom mailed my mom, my dad, so much. Her grandfather, a copy of the book with the autograph, and we spoke. We spoke for an hour and a half, and I said, do you mind if I call my mom? My mom would like to speak to you. She goes, Coach, please. Everyone calls me Coach. So I put her on the phone, and my mom, thank God, was home, and they spoke for about an hour. I couldn't hear what my mom was saying, but I know it was a rehashing of all the moments.
Right.
And all of the stuff that, we discussed here, and maybe stuff that maybe my mom didn't tell me. And I heard Bernice tell my mom, I am so thankful. Not only did your husband save my father's life, I wouldn't even have been born, because she was born after September 20th, 1958. And we spoke. I asked to take a picture or two. She wanted a picture or two. I gave her the packet. And now, here I am. I don't know what I'm looking for. But here's a letter from Martin Luther King, like we showed. Here's one of the articles. An article. You can have it if you want it. That's in the paper. Every year there's articles. Here's the picture that went viral. Here's a picture. Here's a letter from Coretta Scott King after her husband was assassinated.
Wow.
Stated August 6th, 1968. Dear Dr. Naclerio, thank you so much for your kind letter of sympathy following the assassination of my late husband. I appreciate very much the help given him by you and others at the time of the stabbing. It is heartening to know that there are people like yourself all over the world who remember my husband's work and are concerned that it continue. There is certainly much to be done for the cause of justice, brotherhood, and peace. Sincerely yours, Coretta Scott King, Jr. Here's the picture that I should have said, because a couple hours later, my phone starts blasting. I'm not at the party yet. We have a party Friday night at one of my former players' club, Saturday night at a penthouse of one of my players' owns, and then Saturday it's a barbecue at Pat's house. But my phone's, Coach, you're big time. Coach, you're a celebrity. Coach, you met greatness. Coach, you are great. Coach, you're with greatness. And I'm like, what is going on?
What's happening?
I had no idea until I found out that Bernice King blasted this on social media, saying, honored to spend time with Coach Ron Naclerio at the King Center today. Coach Naclerio's father, Dr. Emil Naclerio, was the Harlem hospital surgeon who saved my father's life after he was stabbed in New York City in 1958. Led by Coach Naclerio, Cardozo High School has appeared in the New York City high school playoffs for 33 out of the last 34 seasons, appearing in 5 PSAL championship games and winning the New York City PSAL championship in 99 and 2014.
Wow.
Here is the book, Daddy King. And here is the autographed copy. October 10th. October
Serious memorability
10, 21, 1980. To Dr. Emil Naclerio. May God bless you. Martin Luther King Sr. Here's the yearbook. Here's the yearbook.
Nice.
After Martin III came to Cardozo. Here's the picture Martin Luther King mailed of his family. I have the copy. Bernice was surprised, Martin was it because they were so young, but this is cherished. Here's an article, New York Post.
Wow.
You know? Here's a picture of me, ball boy of the Knicks. You got Mendy Rudolph, Hawthorne Wingo, Mike Banton, the head of the Players Association at one time, Walt Clyde Frazier, Phil Jackson, and Ron Naclerio. When the powers to be at Madison Square Garden saw this a couple years ago, they were shocked. The history of that picture of who the ball boy became or supposedly became. This was a beautiful letter from Mark Tatum for winning the most games. But I'm still going strong.
Nah, that's what's up, Coach.
Still trying to do what's right.
That's what's up.
You know, there are people you wish that can share this with you. You know, I know my mom and dad are looking down. I wish my brother was here. You know, I'm not a thief, but you always have someone say there's a partner in crime. Mm-hmm. If I had a partner in crime, it was a guy I met my second year coaching, who my third year came to a game when I was upsetting a team and started rooting for me. And I actually had to shoo him away because he would come over to me. You can win, you can win. I'm in the timeout, diving up playing. It was a guy that I became a close personal friend with, who, because of him, my doors were opened. So many young kids' doors were opened. So many kids got chances of not only going to college, playing high-level ball, the rucker here and there. A person that showed kids, you know, how to fill out tax forms, how to invest money. Arnie Hershkowitz.
Wow, Mr.
And
Hirsch. Rest in peace. Hirsch.
In my office, the office that I had, every picture in that office was a Cardozo player, whether it be at Cardozo, college, or pro. So, like, if it was a Ray for Austin, it could be a picture of him in the Houston Rockets or the Toronto Raptors. You know, it would be me with the president, former President Clinton, me with a baseball player. It was always something Cardozo. There was the Martin Luther King wall. The only picture that had nothing of Cardozo being a player or a coach or the Martin Luther King War was Arnie Hershkowitz. That was the picture of Hirsch in the Hofstra yearbook that Jay Wright and Tom Pecora put in there after Hirsch passed away. And I remember at his funeral, March 1st, 2004, I was good until Dave Liss from the Entourage spoke and mentioned my name. And how he mentioned my name was, Hirsch would abuse you. Mm-hmm. Hirsch was crazy in a great way. Patrick Alphonse knows that. And when Dave Liss said, the more he abused you, the more he loved you. And Dave Liss said, Ron, you know Hirsch abused you the most. And I knew Hirsch loved me the most then. And I just cried for the rest of the funeral, all the way back. I was with Howie Frashberg, a good friend of mine. I was with Timmy Kloos. And I think the funeral was somewhere in central Jersey. I don't think I stopped crying until I got off the BQE hitting the Long Island Expressway.
Wow.
Because, I will never...
It meant a lot to you, man.
I will never say anything bad about the man upstairs. And I'm hoping I do see him many, many years from now. But I would just ask him, could you have kept Hirsch several more years? Because there were so many kids that Hirsch helped that Hirsch didn't get a chance to help him. You agree, Pat?
Yep, I agree with that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right,
Big. We're doing big. Big things. Big things.
He's doing big.
Hackle.
Doing big.
Yeah, basketball, and talking about Hirsch and losing him, makes me just think about, the basketball season, what we lost this year already in Tom Konchowski. Rest in peace.
Tom.
Got to get the handshake, baby.
anything with a ball that's a 29.5. A 29.5 means it's the size of a boys'
Regulation.
basketball.
Right, regulation.
28.5 is a girls' basketball. But anything with a 29.5, you played it, you had a son that played it, you were a fan, you were a coach, you were a referee, you were a player. You knew Tom Konchowski, and Tom knew you. It was sad. Tom caught the dreaded C, cancer, about 2 years ago. Gave a valiant effort. Didn't look good. Tom was 74, and every time you saw him, he started looking 84, 94. That's not a good sign. And Tom, every time I would call him or speak to him, I'm okay. The last 2 or 3 times, Ron, I've had better days. So once somebody starts admitting it, and I wanted to go see him in the hospital when he was at Mount Sinai. But I didn't want to go to Mount Sinai because the last time I was at Mount Sinai, I was there to see Howie Garfinkel, who
Wow.
Garfinkel and I became very close the last 10, 15 years. So I heard Tom was asked to be put in a hospice. Now, I know what the word means, and I know what happens when you get put into a hospice. That was Saturday, February 6th. Sunday, February 7th, the day of the Super Bowl, I find out, I called the hospital, very strict visiting hours. I was lucky that there were 1 to 7, 12:59, 59, you're not getting in. 4:59, 59, you got to be out. I get there 12:15, it was snowing. When I get there, at Calvary Hospital in the Bronx, there were 3 or 4 people there that Evan Pickman, who was once with the Clippers, they were there to see Tom with his wife, the coach of Malloy, Coach Naclerio, we got to know him through Jack Curran, some other guy, and it was one at a time. So at about 5 to 12, we could go in and sign in. We had to do all the COVID protocol,
Right.
get your number, and they told us one at a time, try to limit it to 10 minutes because there'll be a line. And what happened was, I waited outside. I wanted to be last. And I was last. When I got up there, Tom and I had about an hour and 10-minute conversation. First thing when I walked in, Tom was watching a religious show, because everybody knows Tom would go to Mass every day if he could. And he sees me. Ron, so glad to see you. Please come in. So when I walked to the side of his bed, no, Ron, please, here, sit down. And the first thing he did was the handshake. And Hirsch and I would always tease because Tom has to be in the Guinness Book of Record for most attempted handshakes, most successful handshakes, and the longest handshake.
I don't know with COVID, he wouldn't be doing no handshakes right now, though.
Well, Tom gave the handshake, but he might do it with the glove. That just shows shows you how crazy it is with COVID. Because before COVID, if you walked into a bank with gloves and a mask on, they called the police. Now, if you don't walk into a bank without gloves and a mask, they don't let you in.
They won't let you in.
So I'm saying, damn man, that's what I'm saying. This world's crazy. But Tom and I spoke about a lot of things that will probably remain personal. Maybe one or two things that I kind of disappointed him or pissed him off, and a couple of things he did to me that and when I said to Tom, because I wanted to leave, and I'm sure if there was somebody waiting for me to get out to see Tom, it was about 10 to 5. They would at least get 10 minutes, and I gave Tom, listen, I'm gonna be back tomorrow to see you. I definitely be back. And Tom goes to me, he goes, Ron, please, you don't have to come back. Please, don't go out of your way. And I was wondering if Tom was telling me something about he wouldn't be here tomorrow. But when I got up, he reached out, and I kind of turned, realizing that was my last handshake that I was ever going to have with him. And the next morning, he passed away.
Well, rest in peace to Tom Konchowski.
Rest in peace, Tom.
Let's talk about your guys, man. Some of the guys you coach, man. Let's talk about some of these guys that took it all the way to the L, man. Who was your first pro out of Cardozo?
Well, my first pro was a kid that Tom Konchowski gave a 3 rating, which meant low D1. I had a little friendly argument with Tom. I said, I think he's big time. And he looked at me like, Ron, he might get no time. And he ended up going to Temple, played for the legendary John Chaney, who,
there you go.
if COVID wasn't around, Coach Dwayne Carswell and I were going to be there, because John Chaney was a guy that became very friendly with Hirsch and I.
Right.
But Dwayne became the 18th pick in the first round at a 1990 draft. Played for the Sacramento Kings. Is one of the is the leading shot blocker in the history of the Kings for a game 9 and for a season.
Nice.
Played in the NBA about 11, 12 years. Ended up finishing up with the Miami Heat, backing up Alonzo Mourning.
Okay.
Great kid. Worked so hard. Nobody thought he could play. My second pro was Lou. Who? Lou. Skip 2.
That man, Mr. Austin.
Yeah. If I took a lie detector test, it's based on impulses. Did you make Rafa the play he was? If I said yes, the impulses would say I'm lying. Okay. I helped Rafa with a lot. Tried to work with him on the shot. But if the question was, if Billy Medley...
Did you call Talk, or did Talk call you for Rafa?
Well, I'll tell you how that happened. If Billy Medley and Ron Naclerio were not in Rafa Ralston's life, I don't think Rafa would have made it, because Rafa got himself in so much trouble that Billy Medley and Ron Naclerio managed to get him out. How Rafa ended up with Talk, Hirsch and I sent Lloyd Daniels to Talk. Didn't turn out too well. But Talk ends up calling myself to try to get Stephon Marbury to go there. I said, you're not going to get Marbury. What about if I offer his brother an assistant job? No. But I said, you can get the next best thing. What do you mean? I told him who Rafa Ralston was. He flew in, met myself and Billy Medley, my assistant coach. He went to the Rucker that night. What was amazing about the Rucker that night, when we were going over the 145th Street Bridge, talks in the car, he was amazed. He goes, Ron, how many people live in this building? I go, about 5,000. He was like, what? He couldn't believe it, because, he's flown to towns that don't have 5,000.
Right.
So we parked behind the Rucker, and when we parked, we couldn't believe it. There was this big black guy taking a piss. He couldn't believe it. And then all of a sudden, the guy turns and starts walking toward him. And Talk was like, it was Richie Adams.
The animal. I knew you were going to say that. The animal.
And I saw the animal a couple of weeks ago, and we the story, he loved it. But Rafa shows up late to the game. So Talk goes, where is he? I said, don't worry, he always shows up a couple of minutes late. So all of a sudden, Rafa comes running in. And by halftime, Talk was like, because Rafa did a couple of moves. And Talk was just like in disbelief. We go to myself and Billy Mother goes, what did he do? What did he do? So then at the end of it, Talk goes, what do I have to do to get him? Now, I don't know if he meant, buying a player or this or that, but like Billy Medley and I knew we wanted to help save Rafa because he was getting in so much trouble. We said, what do you mean? What do you have to do? You got him. Take him here. Take him back with you. And so next thing you know, Talk worked it out. Rafa at Fresno City Junior College, then Fresno State, and Rafa. The rest is history.
Tough club,
Let
though.
me give a story about Rafa. Rafa been coming to my gym at Grady with Ron, because we know Ron and my coach was real close friends. So Rafa was like 13, 14, coming to our gym, our practice. So me and him had a good relationship. Always stayed in contact. When the Lakers play Orlando in LA for the finals, I would meet up with Ray every time he come to LA. He said, Pat, come to Beverly Hills and meet me at this restaurant. And I went to meet him. I got there kind of late, so they was leaving. He was leaving the restaurant. It was him, then Dwight Howard was right behind him. Rafa looked at me and said, Pat, what's up? I said, what up? He looked at Dwight and said, yo, Dwight, my man right here back in the days would have bust your ass. I put my arms up right in front of Dwight's chest to see how, where he at, where my arms was at. My hand was laying right next to his belly button. I was like, yo, this is a problem.
Big dudes.
But Ray's my God, man. Love that kid.
Man, that's what's up.
Love Ray.
Yeah, Rafa's a young man I'm so happy about. He's done great. But then my next player was a kid that played JV. I remember tryouts. I asked him what size sneaker he wore. Size 13. Next day I had him back. How old are you? 13. When's your birthday? December 20th. So he's on the JV. First report card, he's ineligible. So, wow. So I start thinking he's going to be really good, but I stay on him, and he was never ineligible again. His parents didn't go for that.
Right.
Next year he's on the varsity. Junior year he's playing and doing well. Senior year, he becomes Robin to Batman. Brian Woodward, Dwayne Woodward's brother, was the best player in the city that year. Royal Ivy was
Top defense.
top. And in our city championship game, Royal had 0 at the half. We were down 5 to Kennedy, 26-21. Royal had 16 points the second half to get MVP. Royal, being so young, had St. Francis, Marist, and Boston University. I convinced the father to send him to prep school for a year. The mother said, no, he's got a scholarship because she valued education. I explained if Royal went to those 3 schools he had, being so young, 17, he wouldn't play a lot. But by going to prep school, he would, if he had those schools, would play a lot. And then the following year, bigger schools would come in possibly.
Right.
So he goes there, he comes home December, no schools added to the list. I call 68 Division I schools. 68 Division I schools.
He was getting this kid in school.
One school said, there's a kid from Christ the King that is better. So I told the coach, you think he's better? And I had to give a Hirschline. You must be smoking crack. It ended up, Steve DeMayo, one of my former players, was coaching at Providence. His father told him to take him, but he never was sold on him. And now all of a sudden, I'm in Florida with my mom, April of his senior prep school year, and he calls me up. He goes, Ron, we just saw Royal play. We want to offer him, but we got a problem. What's the problem? Texas and Clemson are recruiting him now. Can you do me a favor? What? Don't have him visit Texas or Clemson, because I know if he visits, he will go there. So I said, Steve, you had a chance. How could I tell a kid not to take the trip? Of course, Royal visited Texas, loved Texas, still holds the record, most games played, most something steals, minutes, the whole bit, most wins. I think he's won the most wins as a starter. And when they played Providence, and I tried to tell Steve, if you get him, you'll get his best friend the next year. Who? Showtime, Darryl Hill. So Darryl ended up, that's a great player in himself. But Royal was so mad that when they played on national TV at Providence, Royal hit a 3 to send the game into overtime, turned to Steve DeMayo and said, "You didn't want to offer me a scholarship." And then he hit the 1-1 in overtime to win the game. He had 21 points. Royal ended up going 38th pick in the second round. Had a great career as a role player for someone who people didn't even think he'd play D1. And he became very tight with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant says he's his closest person in his life, even closer than one of his brothers. And now Royal, besides,
assistant coach now, right?
Was assistant coach with OKC. Then Philly wanted, and the Boston wanted him. He was with the Knicks. He wanted to be in Brooklyn. He's with the Brooklyn Nets right now as assistant coach. And he might be a reason why I might not be coaching Cardozo until I'm 100, because he swears that when he gets a head job in the NBA, he's yanking me from 5700 to 23rd Street to wherever he goes. And, that might be the only time I would leave. Then we also have James Sutherland, a 6'8" shooter from Syracuse. He played 1 year in the league, Charlotte for a while, and then New Orleans. In fact, his claim to fame was he had 13 against New Orleans. He had a dunk on Kevin Durant. But he's playing overseas, doing really, really well. He still holds the record, most threes in a Big East tournament. When Syracuse lost to Louisville, he had 19.
All right. Coach, you got numbers, man. You got numbers, and you got quality people in your life, like your good friend.
Well,
I'm a Tar Heel guy, though. But
you know what? I got to know Roy Williams when I got an award in 2002 with the NABC. I was the first high school coach to get an award, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. I got to know Roy Williams. But through Howie Garfinkel, I was blessed to meet and get to know Mike Krzyzewski.
Nice.
Mike Krzyzewski, every time he sees me, we talk about golf. I've met him several times. He sees me, and he goes, he loves the fact that I gave his wife a copy of the Martin Luther King letter, because they have kids that one's a teacher and uses the letter. And we reminisced about Howie Garfinkel at his funeral, where Coach K flew up to. And, it's sad, that we're meeting so many great people at sad times instead of good times.
Right, absolutely. But with all these players and what you've done in the PSL, how does it feel to be the winningest coach, though?
When I first started coaching, winning was hard. And I still realize how hard it is. I mean, I'm still, watching every videotape, every clip, every VCR tape to learn, because there's so much learning to do, especially now with the internet. There's pickandpop.net, there's Brendan Sir, Play It a Day. But my first year, I won one game. I was 1-21. And Coach Karnak Seka, like I said, an uncle took me under his wing. I went to every clinic with everything, and I was lucky with the same team, minus 3 kids that graduated. I realized they were more cancer than Cardozo. And one addition from a junior high, and I was 21-4 that next year. And I worked as hard as I could every year. In fact, I think I worked so hard to keep Cardozo being Cardozo, the King of Queens, than even thinking about moving on and moving up. And here I am 40 years later, the winningest coach in PSAL history, 850 wins.
Salute to you,
the
Coach.
Number
That's
2,
big.
Thank you. The number 2 coach was a rival, Andrew Jackson, campus magnet, Chuck Granby, who had 723. The third coach is Johnny Mathis, John F. Kennedy.
Kennedy, right?
He has about 630 or 640. I didn't realize Johnny's turning 78. He says this might be his last year. So, I don't see him surpassing me, even if he coaches 2 years, because he'd have to win, about 200 games. But I still love what I'm doing. How many more wins I have in me? Well, my assistant coaches will have a say in that. The kids that are hopefully lucky enough to come to Cardozo get accepted and play for me, and I'm lucky enough to coach them. And who knows, you know? I mean, you know, I never thought I'd get to 500. I never thought I'd get to 600. I never thought I'd get to 700. I got to 800. I'm halfway to 900.
No,
And,
that's what's up.
you know?
So tell the audience, like, tell the people that are watching, like, what does bridging the gap mean to you? Share with them,
Well, you know what? As I've gotten to a point where everybody tells me everywhere they go, they know me. You know, Cardozo, they know me. Compton, they know me. You know, there was a guy I met at I was a last-minute guest speaker at a thing at Riverbank State Park, and I gave a really great speech for 20 minutes to the kids, and I didn't know who the guy was. Some guy, he says a famous rapper, they're all there. He said, dude, I love that speech. I love that speech. You were great to the kids. I didn't know who he was. It was the rapper from L.A. Was it Nipsey Hussle?
Yes.
I didn't even know, you know. So, but you find out through my contacts in the NBA, my players in the NBA, everybody knows me there. From the people in college, they all know me. People in high school, they all know me. Social media, people follow me. I get messages from people, you know, saying, Coach, I look up to you. I want to model my career after you. I mail them, you know, clinic stuff that I have written down. I'm like, how am I so well known here? I'm like, and then, Coach, everybody knows you. You know, and I'm probably like the most famous nobody. You know, you know, I want to be somebody, and maybe I realize
you're very
I'm
much.
dissing myself. But you know what? I love what I do. I love the fact wherever I go, I'm well known. I get treated with respect like I get treated like respect, like I'm an NBA coach or a major Division I coach. You know,
made a major difference though.
You know, I have a picture. I have a picture at a
major difference.
I have a picture that is on my social media pages. A couple of years ago, I was at a function no high school coach would go to. I was invited, and every top coach was there. And at the end, they asked for all the NABC coaches, because I'm a member of the NABC, National Association of Basketball Coaches, for 37 years. Please go up. We want to take a group picture. So they pushed me, get up there. So you remember. So I got up there, and I didn't realize it, because I got a picture and somebody framed it. I'm on stage with Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, Bill Self, Patrick Ewing, every great coach in the country. And it's me. And I'm in the middle. And somebody said, how'd Naclerio get up there? And then you see a Jay Wright, a Krzyzewski, a Patrick Ewing say, what do you mean? He deserves to be up here more than a lot of guys that were in his picture, and that makes me feel great. And that picture. But you know what? I still have a lot of goals that I want to achieve. I still have a lot of things I want to continue to do. And one of the things I want to do is write a book about my funny stories, sad stories. I have somebody that is in the process of doing it. Nice. I have a lot of things I want to tell. I have a couple of great movie ideas. And one of the things I want to do is I want to give back to all of the young coaches, because a lot of coaches want to run a practice. They don't have that many drills. I got more drills than the math book got problems. Plays, simple plays, advanced plays versus a zone, plays versus a 2-3 zone, press offenses, so many things. Simple basketball, notoriety as far as how to deal with players, how to deal with parents, stuff like that. And I want to give up.
That's needed, man. How can people get in touch with you, Coach?
Well, if you want to get in touch with me, don't call collect. I'm on Facebook, Ron Naclerio. I'm on Instagram, Ron Naclerio. I'm on Twitter at Coach R Naclerio. And if you really want to get a hold of me, my email is naclerioron@yahoo.com. NACLERIORON@yahoo.com. And if you really need to get at me, call Cardozo, and the switchboard operator will give you my cell phone number.
That's what's up, Coach. We really want to thank you, man. But just whatever last words you got, man. It was a pleasure, man. Usually I'm running my trap, man. But it was a pleasure to listen to this.
Well, you know what? I don't like last words, because last words are like a funeral or an end. I said a continuation of words.
Okay.
Well, Thank God for the great doctors, great scientists that have developed the vaccine. The trust in them each day is getting more and more. The vaccines will hopefully get us back quicker than we
type of
will
normalcy.
be to some normalcy. So the great doctors, you know, my hands off to them. To all the kids, please listen to the adults, because when you get older, you will realize you were young and dumb. And I say this, don't be cool, because most kids that are cool end up being a fool. And I say, doing something small in life with a chance to do something more is better than all the money in commissary. Because
You already
being the
know.
king with all the money in commissary, not being free, is terrible. So to all you youth out there, set your goals high, reach for the stars. And you know what? If somebody's getting on you, an adult, they're getting in your face, they're doing something, don't diss them. Get on your knees and pray and thank God that you have somebody that cares, somebody that's going to kick you in the ass to force you to reach your goals and the goals of greatness, all right? And being on the right side of the law, not the wrong side of the law. God bless you.
You already, that's Coach Ron
Thank you,
Naclerio.
Thank you, baby.
You heard? And it's a wrap.